Hello and welcome to episode 3 of a DM's Guide to Icewind Dale, Rime the Frostmaiden. On today's episode, we're still in Bremen and we're going to focus on the Lake Monster quest. If you like this content, remember to like and subscribe, and if you're feeling generous, there's a Patreon link in the description below. I'll see you at the end with your questions from last week's episode.
So your player characters have been following the different clues and breadcrumbs, and they arrive in the dock outside. What happens? How do they start the Lake Monster quest? So if your player characters have arrived in Bremen, or they start the campaign here, if they walk around the docks, this is what they'll see. The lake around the creaking docks is frozen, forcing fishers to pull their rowboats up into the ice. Standing between the pair of boats is a stout humanoid in cold weather clothing. A grey hood hides most of his humanoid face, but you can make out a wide nose and a long frosty beard. This stout figure stamps their feet, spots you and waves you over. Good, you're here. Get to it, ingrates. Those fish ain't gonna catch themselves. This dwarf who's speaking to you just now is Grunks Billermore. He's a shield dwarf and he owns a pair of rowboats. If you've introduced the fishermen in Bird Treasures as I have, you realise that these fishermen here were supposed to be with Grunst an hour ago, and he's eager to get them out fishing. If your player characters tell him that they have no idea who he is or what to do, he still expects them to go out fishing. He tells them that knucklehead trout is 5 copper pieces apiece. If your player characters are investigating, they'll notice there's 2 boats. One boat is called the Burly Ram, the other boat is called the Pronged Goat. And as you can see, one of these boats is not in the best state. When they investigate, they realise that this damage to the Pronged Goat has been done by a large bite. They ask Grinsk about this. All he's going to say is, "Don't you see? Bloody ice everywhere. Last crew are apparently born with pits for eyes because they sailed right into a damn ice floe. I ain't got around to repairing the gunwale yet, but she floats just fine." It then inside him to realise that this boat was definitely attacked by something. Over the course of a couple of minutes, as your player characters talk with Grinsk trying to figure out what's happening, you'll see Tally walk into the scene. You hear footsteps approaching on the creaky dock. Another figure covered head to toe in cold weather clothing has joined you. The figure wags a gloved finger at this frosty bearded dwarf. "You have no honour, Burlybore," the newcomer yells, pulling down the woolen muffler to reveal a pale half-elven face. "You're sending these innocent people to their deaths. And for what? A few fish? Pay no mind to this rambling fool." "Did you tell them about the monster?" retorts the half-elf. You have the perfect odd couple. You have this half-elf Tally, and you have this dwarf Grinsk. Grinsk wants you to go out and get some fish, make some money, and Tally wants to make sure that you're safe. Very shortly, Grunks will storm off and expect you to get to work. Tally will then introduce himself sheepishly. "I'm getting the feeling that Grinsk doesn't like me very much, or anyone who steps between him and the gold swimming in this lake. I'm Tally. I'm studying the loyal animal life here in Icewind Dale. I just couldn't stay silent and watch another crew fall victim to the monster of Melderon." So what you have is Tally. He is a neutral, good half-elf researcher, and he wants to study the climate change and how this is affecting the animal wildlife within Icewind Dale. And with his personality, he'll just talk about the flora and fauna, and he'll go into very long-winded conversations about this. If your player characters initiate the conversation with him, he's going to give them brief descriptions of what this monster could be. Some witnesses say it's the size of an ox, others say it's closer to the size of a house. Some say it might be a whale, it might be a large fish, and some say it has more lizard-like appearance, with a scaly skin and a long neck. If they ask more information about the damaged boat, Tally will explain that it was found adrift and the crew is presumably lost to the lake monster. If your characters seem reasonable and unthreatening, Tally will then continue like this. Tally hands you a notebook. "I can't offer you much other than my gratitude, but if you're going out on the lake, please write down any information to learn about the nature of this monster. If we know what's out there, the people of Bremen would be much safer for it. And well, it bears the potential to be awfully interesting." And with this scenario, the most important thing that Tally needs to explain to your player characters, if they do initiate the conversation, is that Tally's only heard reports of this creature Melderon attacking only the fishermen from Bremen and nowhere else. And because of this, this is why Tally has been frequenting the docks to warn any uninformed people looking to venture into the lake. So the only initiative your player characters currently have now is to be paid 5 copper pieces for going out into the lake to fish, they can go out and slay a sea monster for glory, and if they, for instance, help Tally and they write into his notebook what they receive as a reward. If they hand over the research to Tally, the party receives a scroll of animal friendship and a pouch containing 5 gold pieces as thanks. What I did with Tally was give him a bit more personality. I didn't want him to be a goody two-shoes, so I wanted him to be very interested with the dead body of the sea monster and how he wanted it just for his own macabre ways. He's interested about the size, the scale, and the sharp teeth, just to give it a bit more flavour and make it a bit more terrifying. So how do we run this encounter then? Your player characters will go out into the ice, and it's really up to yourself how far away this sea monster is. So I would say at least you'll be walking across the ice for about, let's say, 300 feet. So you do an athletics check to see how quickly you can get the boat into the sea. If your player characters ask about the clues Tally's given, you perhaps can do a nature check. And if you get a high enough roll, you might give them clues that perhaps this monster might be a dinosaur or something prehistoric. For this encounter, all I did was I made a battle map and just showing the open sea, and I had a token for the burly ram and the prong goat, knucklehead trout, and the sea monster, which is this waking plesiosaurus. And if you don't know, a rowboat, if you go into D&D Beyond, is a large vehicle 10 foot by 5 foot. It has 2 crew members and 2 passengers, which means a party of 4 can fit into one boat. So how would your player characters find this plesiosaurus? And what makes this awakened plesiosaurus so interesting? The reason this plesiosaurus is interesting is that it's been awakened. If your player characters decide to talk with this plesiosaurus, it will speak back. You realise that this plesiosaurus is not particularly hostile. He just simply wants to swim, eat fish. So all your player characters have to do to find this awakened plesiosaurus is to simply go out and row into the lake. And every hour you'd roll for a lake event. With me running games, I typically don't like things run by random chance, because it's very difficult to prep for. So what I will do is I'll have the first hour to be still and quiet, and allow your player characters to do some fishing. And the second hour, I would have a knucklehead trout leap out of the lake and make a tail attack against one of your characters. And if your characters have past perception, they'll see this coming, and they can use your action to make an option attack against it, or they perhaps could grapple this fish. And in the third hour, I would have this awakened plesiosaurus make its presence known. So before I go into explaining this awakened plesiosaurus and give you more detail about it, I'm going to very briefly discuss how to fish for these knucklehead trout, because these knucklehead trout here most likely will be more deadly than this plesiosaurus. So the knucklehead trout, he will swim throughout Melodoron. If your player characters want to fish for him, they have to do a survival check over the course of an hour. When your character makes a DC 15 wisdom survival check, they will catch a knucklehead trout, and they must make a strength athletics check contested by the fish strength. The fish will then have advantage on this throw, and if the fish wins, your player character is going to lose the fish, and if they fail by 5 or more, they're going to be thrown to the water, and they have to make a dexterity saving throw or be thrown into this ice cold water. If they go into the ice cold water, they have the number of minutes equal to the constitution score, and each minute after that, you're going to have to make a constitution check or take 1 level of exhaustion. If your player character is resistant or immune to the cold damage, you'll automatically succeed. But the question is, how evil are you to your player characters? As in, if they're close enough to the shore, they're knocked into the water, you can get back into the boat. If they've got spells such as precipitation, they can dry themselves. But if they've got nowhere to dry themselves, all they can do is get back to shore as quickly as possible and heat up in Bremen. So very easily, your player characters could freeze to death. And again, guys, if any of your player characters have died to freezing in Lake Melodoron, let me know in the comments below. So after your player characters have dealt with these knucklehead trout, and hopefully they're not drowned, you'd read this out. Ripples disrupt the surface of the lake, causing your boat to bob from side to side. A large mass glides through the dark waters beneath you. If your characters make an intelligence check with nature, they can identify this creature's plesiosaurus if they get a DC of 13 or higher. In the book it says that you follow this plesiosaurus behaviour. You just roll a d6 and take it by chance. But what I'll do is figure out what the player characters do and take one of these which is most applicable to it. So this plesiosaurus is not evil, he's neutral, and he just wants to live in the lake. However, he's been forced to attack various boats on this lake, which we'll find out later. If your player characters attack the sea monster, he's not going to attack them, he's going to attack their boat from below. And if he takes more than half damage, he's going to swim away. If your player characters speak, with him or shout at him, his reptilian head at the end of his long, slender neck rises out of the cold, dark water. The creature gazes at you intently and says in common, "I'm listening." The player characters can then make another intelligence check to same Arcana. If they get a DC of 15, you realise that this Plesiosaurus has most likely been awakened. If your player characters are kind and they speak and they're not aggressive to this Plesiosaurus, you'll give them various clues. I used to just swim around the lake and eat fish. The human who gave me this gift is named Razin and claimed to serve the Frostmaiden. Razin said I must do my part to help the Frostmaiden who wants the people of Bremen to suffer. I don't want to be a stupid beast again, as this Plesiosaurus doesn't know that this druidic magic is permanent. Once your player characters have found out this information, you can keep asking questions. Figure out why the Plesiosaurus is the way he is by making a charisma persuasion check, the DC of 14, and this will allow the Plesiosaurus to reveal that Razin has instructed him to spread fear among the town's fishers. And this Plesiosaurus does not know where Razin is or where she came from. But your player characters take the quest to White Moose in Lonelywood. You'll see her later on in the campaign. And the main thing with this is the Plesiosaurus is afraid to stop what he's doing because it fears this druid might take away that gift that's been bestowed upon it. It doesn't want to be a stupid beast anymore. If your player characters convince the Plesiosaurus that the awakening is permanent, they can do this with a DC 18 Charisma Persuasion check. If this succeeds, Plesiosaurus will promise not to attack any fishers from the village anymore. The most memorable encounter I had with this mission was with one of my parties. They came here and they had a druid and they had a bard. And as they were riding along the burly ram, they were playing drums to attract this Plesiosaurus, because the druid wanted to speak out to this creature and show that they didn't mean harm. The druid on his flute, the bard on his drums, they played a mighty solo for all of Merdalon to hear. This attracted Plesiosaurus, who came to listen to the party's music. And this encounter had no bloodshed. All that happened was talking. And they found out about this druid who had awakened Plesiosaurus. They then nicknamed funnily Plesiosaurus Nessie, and he still reigns in Merdalon today. All other parties that came to Bremen refused to do this quest because they're too scared this lake monster might drown them. So with this quest, it's all about being diplomatic. You can talk to this monster underneath, or you can try to attack. If you're trying to attack this monster, most likely it will knock you into the water, and you most likely will freeze to death. I think it's a very good way of introducing your player characters that you don't always have to fight every single encounter. So with your experience, how do you guys find this encounter? Was it fun? Do you enjoy playing in Bremen? And please let me know in the comments section below. I'll see you next with some questions. Hey, it's me again. So guys, regarding Lake Monster Quest, there's many ways you can do it. For instance, if you really want to do the mission, I would simply increase the reward by various members of Bremen, such as the town speaker De Bulgraf. If people do run away from this, you can always do a random encounter outside of Bremen, but there's many things you can do. And just let me know in the comment section how you guys got on with the mission. Was it fun? Did anyone drown? And did you actually enjoy it? So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go through your questions from YouTube and see what you guys want to ask. From the Mustard Tiger, thanks for the excellent videos on Icewind Dale so far. My group is just about to complete the mountain climb, quest from Targos, so they're still very early on the campaign. I was wondering what personal favourite part of the module is. Is it an encounter, an NPC or location? Love to hear why. Thank you very much, Mustard Tiger. This is a really good question. So with Icewind Dale, from my experience with locations and NPCs, it's all about your party. As in currently, I would say my favourite NPC has to be a giant walrus in Grimskull. As in, it just takes your players just out of the loop a little bit, as it's very serious. Then you've got this giant walrus sliding on his belly, just having a laugh, asking for tasty morsels. Another favourite NPC of mine would be various player characters I have in the campaigns, as I think the players add a lot and just add much more flavour than I could with my NPCs. If I had to say the favourite encounter, it will definitely be Caves of Hunger near the end of the campaign. As you've got the murder mystery, you have no vampires, it's fantastic. Thank you very much for watching,
On the next episode, we're going to go back to Bremen and we're going to give it more life and more depth, and then I'm going to continue on with Sephic and the Cold-Blooded Killer quest. Thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed the content, remember to like and subscribe, and if you're feeling generous, there's a Patreon link in the description below. And another thing to mention with Patreon is we have added a Patreon server, so if you want to chat to me or other people interested in Icewind Dale, feel free to join. And I'll see you the next time. Ciao!